welcome to the Council of Nerds. I'm flying solo today, but my name is Justin Holsclaw, and today we're going to be going over some of the Halo lore, exactly what happened to the Flood, where they came from, and then where I think they're going after the events of Halo 3 and the events of Halo Wars 2. So, cue that scene. First off, to understand Halo, you have to understand some basic things. And the first thing you need to understand is there are a couple of different civilizations. One, the precursors. The precursors were a civilization, basically the gods of the Halo universe, that created everything else, all of the other beings, rather. Then, after them, their first creation was the Forerunners. The Forerunners were the guardians of the galaxy, and those two didn't get along very well. They didn't get along very well with their parents. So, the precursors also then created the different species we see, all of those within the Covenant, and also us, humanity. We then move on, and we find a war breaking out in between the precursors and the Forerunners. The Forerunners wanted something called the Mantle of Responsibility, which is, there are tons of videos about it on YouTube. You can get into that elsewhere. But those two go and they fight each other, and the Forerunners come out on top. They defeat the precursors, and then, in revenge, the precursors decide that they're going to make a biological weapon to go and revenge themselves in the future. Now, this biological weapon alters DNA and changes them themselves. They then atomize themselves and send that dust out into the universe on ships. Now, ancient humanity later discovers these ships, and they take them and they go and they start to feed this dust to dogs. And they've never seen anything like it. They feed it to the dogs, and then they also start to handle it themselves, and they start to notice these changes within these dogs. They become more docile and more obedient, which is kind of odd considering the nature of the Flood. But then, a few generations down the road, we see them becoming more and more violent. And these humans as well becoming more and more violent, those that were exposed to the dust. And eventually they turn to cannibalism and a lot of other gross stuff. And then we get the birth of the Flood with all these genetic mutations. So the Flood break out. They begin to infect the galaxy, going and destroying humanity and some of the prophets, the San'Shyuum. They go through and destroy them. And then the humans, running away from this menace, run into the Forerunners. The Forerunners, in turn, think that they're being attacked and destroy humanity during the Human and Forerunner War, which is how it's known in Halo lore. So, with the humans destroyed, not completely, but basically reduced to cavemen, the Forerunners begin to inhabit their space, the space that they previously occupied. And they run into the Flood. And the Flood begin to infect the Forerunners as well. And the Forerunners realize that humanity wasn't, in fact, trying to invade them, but rather was running away from the Flood. And they get destroyed. The Forerunners get demolished. Over thousands of years, the Flood spread and they begin to infect all of the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. And they run into other galaxies as well. But the Forerunners, realizing that they have failed to protect the galaxy against this huge menace, decide that they're going to do the one thing they can to destroy the Flood, and that is to destroy the Flood's food.
The Flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
You have no idea how this ring works, do you? Why the Forerunners built it? Halo doesn't kill Flood, it kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life.
And so when Master Chief and the Covenant stumble across the first Halo, which is the game Halo 1, Halo Combat Evolved, they go and they release the Flood accidentally. By looking for the control center, they release the Flood, and it begins to infect the Halo and all the Covenant. Luckily for the Master Chief, he's able to destroy the Halo array, and with it, all of the Flood and infected beings on it. So on the first installation, and also on Delta Halo, the Flood were stored in areas known as Halo Flood Research Installations. Now, these research installations conducted studies as to how to fight against the Flood, how to maybe cure their victims, and they weren't able to come up with anything. They were stored there so that future generations of both humanity and Covenant could come and try and figure out a way to overcome it, even though the Forerunners couldn't. Now, skipping forward, we find that Miranda Keyes and the Master Chief have gone to Delta Halo, which is the second Halo in Halo 2, or rather it's the first Halo in the game Halo 2, but the second Halo that they come across. And they go and they find that the Halo array has already been taken over by this thing called the Grave Mind. And the Grave Mind is this collective consciousness of all of these Flood forms that have been infected, of all of these different species, and it's brilliant, and it's taken over the Halo array. And it's also taken over its monitor. And so we find that the Flood is there, and they want to reach out and go and infect other parts of the galaxy. So they try and succeed in blackmailing the Master Chief and also the Arbiter to help them escape. And what he wants to do, the Grave Mind, is infect High Charity. And so what he ends up doing is he follows the Master Chief through a portal and infects High Charity. And High Charity is this place, it's basically the Covenant homeworld, where the Covenant live all together. The prophets, which are the Covenant leaders, live there and direct the Covenant from this place. And it's huge. Billions of people, well, not people, but aliens infect this place. And eventually, the Great Mind takes control of the entire place and brings it to Earth, where he attempts to infect Earth with only one cruiser landing on Earth and then trying to infect it. The humans and Covenant, they fight back and they destroy the Flood on Earth. However, High Charity is still orbiting above it. And opening a portal, the Grave Mind transports High Charity through to the place where all of the Halo arrays were initially created. He wants to destroy the Halo arrays to prevent anything from happening to his invasion plans ever again. Those where, the Flood destroyed everything, or the Forerunners destroyed the entire universe. Well, Master Chief follows him through the portal, and they end up landing in a place called the Ark. Now, High Charity crashes into the Ark, and that's where the Flood begins to infect the Ark. And from there, we find that there's another Halo array that's there at the Ark, but it's only partially designed. The Master Chief blows it up and destroys High Charity, and that's the events of Halo 3. But that's not the end. Although many people think it is, with the release of Halo Wars 2, we see that the Flood still exists, and that High Charity wasn't completely destroyed. High Charity was contained within a containment bubble, and consequently, all the Flood were as well. Now, this containment bubble is later breached by a group of brutes, which were part of the Covenant, but then broke away, and they are known as the Banished. And the Banished go, and they decide they want to loot High Charity, and they ignore all of the warnings that they've received about the Flood. They break in through the bubble shield and go and start to loot High Charity. And consequently, as I've said before, they release the Flood. And then they put it back into the bubble, and that's the end of the Flood right there. Now, moving on, I think in the future, we're going to see more and more of the Flood. The Flood were one of the most popular parts of Halo. And honestly, when I was a kid, I was terrified of the Flood. And I remember playing through those campaigns again and again because I loved them. Now, in the future, I think we'll see them escape from there and begin to infect other worlds. Or we'll see the Flood come in from a different galaxy and start to infect different areas as well. And I think that will kind of bring the humans and the elites again together, but we'll have to see kind of what happens there. Apart from this, I would love to hear any of your comments or theories about what's going to happen in the future. And thank you so much for watching this video with the Council of the Nerds. My name is Justin Holzklom, and subscribe and comment below. I'm going to be watching, and I'm going to go and answer those comments. So if you have any questions, hit me up.